So the first question, if we say end the division, and this is the slogan that has come from the young people in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, end the division. Before we say end the division, we have to say end the unity. End the unity between the Palestinian Authority and the Israeli occupation. End the unity between the Palestinian Authority and the Israeli occupation. End security coordination. End the situation where Palestinian security forces, armed and trained at great expense, sit idly by while Palestinian farmers, trees and crops and homes are destroyed by the settlers, and these highly paid security forces do nothing to protect them. Palestinian security forces that only work to protect the settlers and to arrest Palestinians are Palestinian only in name. So I have to insist on this point and be very firm. End the unity before we can end the division. If not, what is going to happen? We're going to have a situation where you have a continued relationship between Abbas and Israel and a relationship between Abbas and Hamas. And it will be quiet as long as Hamas maintains a ceasefire, as it's said that it's interested in doing. But what happens when Israel, as it routinely does, decides to break the ceasefire and carries out an atrocity in Gaza, and Palestinian resistance fighters there respond? What will happen? How can you maintain unity between one half of the Palestinian people that's under attack by the Israeli army, at war with the Israeli army, and the other half that is going on joint patrols with the Israeli army? It's not possible. So, whereas all of us share the desire for unity, unity has to be built on a principled platform. And this has nothing to do with factions. Because when I listened to the speeches in Cairo the other day, I didn't hear any principles that really spoke to me being addressed by any of those leaders. And I want to come back to what I think the principles we should stand on are. But before that, I want to say something about the issue which Jeff raised, which is very important. The plan by the Palestinian Authority to go to the UN General Assembly in September and call for the recognition of the State of Palestine within the 1967 boundaries. The reasoning behind this, and I share Jeff's hope, even though we disagree on this somewhat, I share his hope that it could be a turning point. But I think we also have to temper our enthusiasm and recognize here again the potential pitfalls. By the way, this isn't all going to be doom and gloom. There's going to be some good news. But the reasoning that Palestinian Authority officials have given for this move is they believe, and I'm quoting now from Riyad al-Malki, one of the Palestinian Authority officials in Ramallah, recognition of a Palestinian state by the UN would create political and legal pressure on Israel to withdraw its forces from the land of another state that is recognized with the 1967 borders. And similarly, Nabil Shath, another Ramallah official, told the New York Times that, I quote, Israel, if a Palestinian state were recognized, Israel would then be in daily violation of the rights of a fellow member state, and diplomatic and legal consequences could follow, all of which would be painful for Israel. Now, wouldn't that be nice if that would happen? The problem is there's no reason to believe that this will happen, based on everything we've seen up to this point, at least on that reasoning. Of course, let's remember that Lebanon has been a member state of the United Nations since it was founded in 1945, and Syria as well. And that has not stopped Israel from occupying large parts of Lebanon and Syria for decades at a time, with no international pressure whatsoever on Israel to withdraw. On the contrary, Syria and Lebanon are told that you have to give guarantees to the occupier before we ask the occupier to do anything. And there's no reason to believe it would be any different in the case of Palestine. What worries me is that the Palestinian leadership up till now have had a strategy that is based solely on diplomatic symbolism, on getting Palestine recognized. You know, they declared a state in 1988, before many of the people in this room were born. And it has been recognized now by more than 100 countries. It didn't change the reality on the ground. Doesn't matter how many PLO missions are recognized as embassies around the world. It doesn't change the reality on the ground. We have seen so many UN decisions in favor of Palestine, dozens of resolutions. The International Court of Justice decision in 2004 saying that the wall Israel is building in the West Bank is illegal and must be torn down. But these resolutions remain words on paper because there is no enforcement. So we don't need more resolutions from the United Nations, and another resolution, even one recognizing Palestine, will not change that. And even worse is a danger that rather than being a step towards true liberation, the world says, well, we recognize the state for you, what more do you want? And forget about the rights of refugees. Forget about the rights of Palestinians living in the Galilee, in Nazareth, in Akka, and Haifa, and Jaffa, who are also struggling to maintain their resistance. So there are real dangers in these strategies that don't pay attention to the reality on the ground. So, with that, I want to move to the good news. What does a real unity platform look like? It's not something that we have to imagine because it already exists. And I believe that the 2005 Palestinian civil society call for boycott, divestment, and sanctions is the real unity platform for all Palestinians, regardless of where they live, regardless of whether they support a political faction or not, regardless if they believe in one state or two states or 10 states. This is the unity platform. For those who don't know what the 2005 BDS call is, I will give a very brief description. This was inspired by what our South African brothers and sisters did in order to advance their struggle to end apartheid in South Africa. In 2005, hundreds of Palestinian civil society organizations signed a call calling on international civil society to impose boycotts, to divest from Israel, and to advocate sanctions until Israel recognizes and implements Palestinian human rights. And three demands in particular. The first, that Israel must end its occupation and colonization of all Arab lands occupied since 1967. Second, that Israel must end all forms of discrimination, abolish all laws and practices that make Palestinian citizens of Israel, Palestinians in 1948, unequal. It must give them full equality. And third, to respect, promote, and implement the rights of Palestinian refugees, including the right of return. I've never met a single Palestinian who would not unify around those three demands because they include the rights and the interests of all Palestinians. And not only is this a platform for unity, but it provides a mechanism